All right, welcome back to another episode of the Top of Off Cricket Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Henry, and with me, I got my Braithwaite and Walter and Sam. And as usual, we're talking everything West Indies cricket. So lots of people are still smarting from what happened on Monday, right? Like I said before, it needed to happen for people to have a true understanding of where West Indies cricket currently is, right? Since what took place, lots of past players have had a lot to say. Carl Hooper, Sir Andy Roberts, Sir Clive Lloyd, Brian Lara, and some of the comments made by some of these past players, I think some thought should have been given to it before they made those comments, right? It's quite easy to say what you want to say when you are in the heat of the moment, when the emotions are high, and you say what you feel, right? But sometimes I believe we need to filter those things. Sometimes it's good to be like, let me give it a couple of days. And I think in the case of Brian Lara, I think in the case of Sir Andy Roberts, I think in the case of Carl Hooper, that should have happened, right, fellas? I honestly think so. Brian Lara is blaming Cricket West Indies for where we currently are, which I believe Cricket West Indies do have a major role to play in that. He's blaming the franchise system also. And I have an issue with that. Sammy, you are privy to something that Sir Andy Roberts say. I'll start with you with regards to that, in terms of Sir Andy Roberts' comments about the CWI, the entire, everybody needs to go. How do you feel about that? You're mute, by the way.
Yeah. I think you said it quite succinctly, people are hurting, as Walter noted last week. These guys are hurting. That's the simple truth. The fact that we're seeing these outbursts from Hooper and Lara and Sir Andy Roberts says that they're deeply hurting. And in fact, if we step back to the Gabba over a year ago, we recall the reaction from Carl Hooper.
Both Lara and Hooper.
And Lara again, you see? So to come from that moment when in their minds it's like, okay, something is happening in West Indies cricket.
Let me ask you this. Surely, hold on. Surely they couldn't have thought that that was the turning point. Surely they couldn't have thought that was the turning point.
Well, I don't know what was going through their minds, right? But, the euphoria of the moment, maybe there was a view that, we can still do this. We're at the bottom and maybe it's a turning point. I don't know. But in a sense, that was an anomaly.
That is always the point.
One can say that. But you see, the Gabba is a place people don't win matches at. So, of course, we can't take away anything from what Shamar Joseph did. And so, while one can say, well, that's a one-off win or whatever argument you want to bring, we cannot take away from the bowling performance. And in fact, coming to this series here in the West Indies, we saw again the bowling performance top-notch, you see? So there are some positives happening in West Indies cricket. I don't need to belabor the point I've made time and time again, that it is easier to raise fast bowlers than it is to raise batters, right? You gotta always remember that. So that's the first thing. All these gentlemen were just hurting and the words just came out. Nobody thought to take a step back and to think through whatever it is, right? So we replace, everybody walks off the cricket board right now. Then what? We hear comments about what New Zealand would have done some years ago in terms of how they changed over their boards and what have you. But at this juncture, if we're going to just talk about the about Cricket West Indies and not get down to the grassroots, then what are we doing? So in fact, the question I want to ask is this. I don't know the answers. I'm genuinely asking the question. What is Scar Hooper doing for grassroots cricket in Guyana? And I start with Guyana. He can easily do the very same in Barbados. We know Scar Hooper is loved in Barbados. But again, what is Scar Hooper doing for grassroots cricket in Guyana? What is Brian Lara doing for grassroots cricket in Trinidad and Tobago? I noticed some weeks ago he was signing his books and giving away his book to school children in Trinidad. I love that. But what else is he doing? Again, I don't know. Maybe he is doing things, but we need to hear about these things. Where can I go on YouTube and see, okay, here is the Brian Lara Academy tournament in, or summer program. With all due respect to Andy Roberts, Sir Andy Roberts, what is he doing for grassroots cricket in Antigua and Barbuda? Where is the sustained program? And I'll end with this. Here in Jamaica, Nikita Miller and James Stewart, they have something good going on at Melbourne. My son just completed 2 weeks of summer school. One of the things they did, yes, you have to pay, for the program, a little over $100 essentially. For females, that summer program was free. There was one female from Campion College, the school that Brandon King came from. Take what you want out of that, right? So Nikita Miller is doing his thing. It's not the first year. My son was there last year too. And on Sundays, you can go down there and James Stewart is there and some other folks, and you can get coaching.
From what I understand, Darren Gango has an academy. I think Samuel Badri has one too. I can't speak to anyone else because I haven't heard about it. I'm not saying they aren't, just like you were saying, we're not saying that something is not going on. But to what degree and how sustained it is, right? Walter, when you heard the comments of Brian Lara with regards to franchise cricket taken away and the West Indies board could have done more to prevent Nicholas Pooran's retirement, what were your thoughts? You're mute, by the way.
Yes. Anyway, I don't think that West Indies Cricket Board could have done much to get Nicholas Pooran right now. If they could have done more, it had to be something that they've been doing before Nicholas Pooran started playing cricket. Right? There's something that had to be in place. With how the amount of money that the Poorans of the world are making now, West Indies cricket cannot afford to pay Nicholas Pooran. We have to be realistic. So yes, what Lara said is partly true, that there has been franchise cricket is eroding West Indian cricket's at its foundation and loyalty, but that's not new. We could go back to the Kerry Packer days, right? When Michael Holden said when he received that $25,000, at that time, 25,000 US is the most money he'd ever seen in his life. That was life-changing money for him at that time. So I'm saying is that this has always been a problem with our region, and so it's the landscape of where cricket is at this particular point in time. And there's not a lot that West Indies could do now. But yeah, so I don't think that's fair. Yes, we should get better governance. Yes, the cricket board should be better run. Yes, as I normally say, some of the older folks in West Indies cricket, we don't see eye to eye. Sammy, I'm winding my words, right? We don't see eye to eye with those fellas, and I don't think that they should be around West Indies cricket. And we know, and we all know them, right? One of them get a Bible name, one of a book, the Bible person that didn't die. He went up like Elijah, right? Last name with a famous boxer. So I am not going to what yes, Lara's what he's saying is partly true, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, not just there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Well, so Brian Lara is speaking about franchise cricket taken away from or eroding West Indies cricket. Brian Lara would have benefited in many ways from the franchise cricket system, especially the IPL. He was an assistant coach with, if I'm not mistaken, with the Sunrisers of Hyderabad. He was also the coach of Sunrisers of Hyderabad. So that's where I have a problem, right? I can't remember one time Brian Lara being a coach of any CPL team. I can't remember Brian Lara being the coach of any Trinidad team outside of the CPL. You understand? This is not to say that he hasn't probably gone down there and given words of wisdom, made inputs at training and stuff of that nature, right? But he's benefited from the franchise, the very franchise system that he's criticizing. What I want these guys to understand is, and it seems like a lot of people are not getting it, this is what cricket is today. Brian Lara has been able to make money from cricket in various, or monetize cricket in various forms. Why is Cricket West Indies being blamed when Nicholas Pooran has an ultimate decision to make? You understand? That's Nicholas Pooran's decision. That's not Cricket West Indies' decision. Cricket West Indies can only do so much, as Walter rightly said, when it comes to that. Cricket West Indies can't. Nicholas Pooran can go to the IPL and make damn near $2 million in two and a half months. Cricket West Indies can't pay Nicholas Pooran that. Even the Australian Cricket Board can't pay Nicholas Pooran, can't pay their players that. You understand? So we need to be realistic here.
Kevin, in the last 5 years, 2021, equivalent to US, 0.51 million US. 2022, 1.3. 2022, 1.3. 2023, 1.9. 24, same thing, 1.9. And last year, Pooran made 2.5.
There is no cricket board, none, that can pay a player that amount of money. You understand? For just two and a half months of work. So what are we really saying? England are trying to mitigate things. The Australians are trying to mitigate things, giving multi-year contracts to players and stuff like that. But it still doesn't amount to that amount of money. So what are we really saying? Right? We have to keep things in perspective. As we have said, lots have happened. Right? Sammy, you asked the question. Carl Hoop is a certified coach, as we know. He got the paperwork. What is he doing for Guyana cricket? When last has Carl gone home and said, for the summer, we're going to have the Carl Hooper Academy?
That would be awesome.
There you go.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
The reason why I asked about what those gentlemen are doing for grassroots cricket here is that very often, and it's easy to do this, we cost the Cricket West Indies.
Yeah.
But what I'm suggesting is that these former players do not need to wait on Cricket West Indies to give them a contract and to call them to come and do X and to do Y. They can do these things. Right? They have the resources. You think if Carl Hooper calls up, or a Brian Lara calls up some Indian cricket company that does cricket gear, they would willingly give him things. Because we all know, unlike football, and football is important to mention because we know, the conflict between we need a field for football and versus cricket.
Yeah.
right? Sabina, Jamaica Premier League football is played at Sabina from time to time. And now with those lights, you
We
see
still,
even more football
we
there.
still saw the circle, the center circle around the pitch
There you
for the
go.
coverage.
But Dre was showing
There
it,
you
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
There you go, right? So it is easier for a child to be outfitted to play football. Good? But when it comes to cricket, the gear, it's not easy to get gear.
If
Good?
if I was
So
to fully
these guys
outfit the
can do
player
this
right now, it
thing.
would cost probably about $1,000.
Of course. Easily.
But Sammy, you are right, you know. The fact that you're saying just Indian, right? It could be not only Indian. If Kyle goes back home, let's say he says from January of this year, I want to run a cricket academy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of companies in Guyana itself
Mm.
that will want to be associated with the name Kyle Hooper. So
Right.
you say, okay, I'm having this academy at DCC or GCC, more like he's a GCC, former GCC player. There are lots of people that will pay. And
There you
also
go.
there's lots of companies that will that because you could plan this thing properly. Because GCC
Yeah.
got, I think there's nets now. So you could do a
Right.
lot of stuff there. Right. So I'm saying is that you're right. You're right. A lot of, as you rightly said, I was thinking about it. And it's twofold because guys, Sammy and I, we have debates. We've been having debates for since we were kids, right? And as Sammy said, in terms of development, and development and development need people and people that push development. And I'm it's a twofold thing with me because I agree with what Sammy is saying, but then I also realize that there is a lack of leadership in the Caribbean, which comes from, me and Sammy, I would say the global north and their interference in our countries. And and the lead, a lot of the times the leaders are in place and are not the best leaders. However, what Sammy is saying is also true, is that we'll call a name again, and people would hear this name a lot. Mr. Carl Moore. Carl Moore has done a lot without resources
For West Indies cricket.
for West Indies cricket, right? So a name like Carl Hooper and a lot of these players, the Carl Hoopers of the world, and by the way, as you said, Kevin, Clive Lloyd was the only person that really made sense because he looked at it from the holistic perspective. We need everything done instead of just attacking people. And yes, people are hurt, but we have to understand that. But it's always the default for West Indies cricket. Whenever we get these losses, people go back, fire the board, fire the coach, cut everybody out, abuse everybody out, and everybody doing a win. And then we go back and then we get a win, and we might win 3-2. I win and treat, I think we might lose 5-0, but we might win 3-2. Everybody's like, yeah, tennis cricket, we're doing
Yeah.
well. And forgetting forgetting that we still have all the issues we have. These issues have not gone away. So you're right. Instead of what Sammy said, instead of these players cussing, say, you know what? I am Andy Roberts. I am going to do what I can do within my sphere of influence in Antigua. Carl Hooper, I'm a Guyanese. I will find a way to do what I can do in Guyana. I don't know what Larry is doing, but he can say, okay, I will do, if he's doing anything in Trinidad. So I don't want to say that, but continue doing or do what I'm doing in Trinidad. And more, and that is what happens. That's what you're right, Sammy. He is right. These leaders, instead of cursing people, play their part.
Here is what surprised me, right? I don't know how you guys feel about this. They jumped straight to the board. But nobody looked at the GCB. Nobody looked at the BCA. Nobody looked at the Leeward Islands Cricket Association, the Windward Islands Cricket Board, the JCA. Nobody looked at any one of them and said, hey, your guys' product is not what it's supposed to be. Fix it. Because it's affecting West Indies cricket. But we jump straight at the board.
CWI.
Yeah, we jump straight. I don't know you guys' thoughts on that. Somebody talk to me, man.
But before I say Sammy, the jump on a cousin Kishore Shallow and Darren Sammy and these people. As you rightly said, you're not addressing, as he said, you're not addressing the leaders within the boards. You have somebody who's a leader said, "Oh, I don't need a cell phone." Okay, you are a leader in a particular club, a major county in. You need these things are not okay. These certain things you need, certain things you need. You need to start thinking outside of the box. And our problem is that we have been left behind, and we talk about mentality. Sammy, Kevin and I were having a conversation before you, and this is sad. With all the resources and the money that we've had, and people, Guyana's not just had resources. We've always had, we studied this in social studies. We have a plethora of resources other than oil. I'm going to say this, and it's shameful, but I'm going to say this. I want the Caribbean to know. I'm in my mid-40s. A lot of the drains in the tongue that we come from got concrete. Our children, Kevin children, who got older children, Sammy got older children, and a lot of the youth don't know that they got concrete there because they haven't been cleaned since in the 1990s. As I'm sorry that I'm putting more country on the whole, but people got to know that because I really vex right now, but that particular one. How will we expect that we can address cricket? Sammy, you could talk. I don't.
No, what we are getting at there, Walter, is an example, and maybe it doesn't resonate with people who've never been to New Amsterdam, but I understand where you're coming from. And it comes back again to things. We go back to the 1950s, the 1960s, 70s. The world was not as developed as it is now, right?
But they had the sweeper cleaners them used to clean in the drains in the 1980s and the 70s every day at 5:36 every morning.
Yeah. So in certain ways, we've regressed. Yeah, we've gotten fancier cars, we have cell phones, we have air conditions and units and what have you, right? But we got to get back to ensuring we do the basics right, Give you a quick example. Andy Roberts said something which resonated deeply with me, right? He mentioned, I think it was Mikhail Louis. Kevin, you could correct me here if I'm wrong. Mikhail Louis made 90-odd with Athenaeus in Antigua and Barbuda when Bangladesh was here, right? And according to Andy Roberts, he's behind, behind the stump. So at some point, he's going to be behind the batter, right? If you're in that position. And he said from his vantage point, Louis was not moving his feet. So he's not getting behind the ball properly, right? He says further that what it says to him is that Mikhail Louis is uncomfortable. And I could understand that.
I know exactly why he's uncomfortable, but when you finish, I'll tell you.
Right?
He made a 97 against Bangladesh.
I'm saying, and it's instructive that this man made 90-odd, but still he's not getting behind the ball. So you can do well, but if there are fundamental flaws, then you're not going to be able to sustainably be a good batter. Right? Now, something like that, should that be dealt with years before? You see? And so if our greats or if our former players are invested in our cricket,
he would pick that up from early.
And one more example before you jump in, Kevin. Years ago when Brian Lara was, I don't know, either in his early 20s or maybe a teenager, Garfield Sobers saw him in the nets and said to him afterwards, "You are not watching the ball properly." And Brian Lara was puzzled. What are you talking about? And then Sobers had to say to him, from the time the bowler is at the top of his mark, your eyes need to be glued on that ball. How Sobers picked that up? Well, the man is indeed great, right? But there's simple things, there are things which me and I can consider myself a novice, right? I know export in no way, right? Can't pick up. But these fellas, because they've seen it, That's why I mentioned, when we talk about psychologists and so on. Fine, we can have those. But they are the only people who can communicate effectively with our young cricketers are people who have played this game at the highest level and they know certain things, right? I stop there.
And before Kevin says something, one thing, Kevin, and supporting Sammy point and layer on it. Don't forget your point. Soon Ravel Dravid finish, he was injured on the 19 team. He do the A team, and then he jumped right up to the international team. That is a perfect example of another country doing exactly what you said. Sorry, Kevin. Sorry, but I just had to say that.
So I'll speak on something about an important point about Raul Dravid in a little bit. But here's the thing: Mikhail Louis was a leg spinner for the West Indies under 19 team, right? He was in the West Indies Academy team as a leg spinner. I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was 2020 or whatever that year was when the Academy team won the West Indies first class Super 50 tournament, which was shocking. A bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds beat a set of grown men who were seasoned cricketers, right? Joshua De Silva, I think, led that team. Kevin Sinclair was in that team. I think Anderson was in that team also. Anyways, Mikhail Louis was a leg spinner. When you look at Mikhail Louis, what you see, and this tells you where bowling in the West Indies is currently, right? When you look at Mikhail Louis, what you see is someone who is still learning how to bat. Is pretty much a lower order batsman. His whole setup, how he plays the ball, is reminiscent of a lower order batsman. A number 7, number 8, 9 type thing. You understand? Stabs at the ball a lot, which is one of the reasons why he gets caught behind with the ball away from him, because he's constantly stabbing at the ball. If you looked at how he got out against Australia in this last test here, the bat was, I think he got LBW in the second innings. The bat was about 6-7 inches away from his body, and the ball was bowled straight, stabbing at the ball. You understand? His foot was probably like 6 inches outside the crease. In his mind, he's going forward, but he's never gotten forward. People have to understand where Mikhail Louis is coming from. Now, Sir Andy Roberts is making these comments, he's making these observations. Who has listened to Sir Andy Roberts and said to Mikhail, hey, look, we got a major problem. You don't move your foot. You don't get in line. You can't play this ball if you're not in line. At least not successfully. Right? Who is addressing that with Mikhail Louis? What we're seeing with Mikhail Louis today, we saw it last year. The problem is still there a year later. So that tells me no kind of work has gone into it. I mean, you can tell me some work has gone into it, but you can show me better with your actions, right? The next point. Raul Dravid came here, I think it was 2 years ago with the Indian team. And he remarked something that every West Indian should be ashamed of, especially at the territorial level. He recognized that West Indian players can't utilize our grounds to practice. Somebody from outside the house come in and tell the people who live inside the house, hey, this is your problem. I don't know if anyone has listened. I can't speak to it. But I heard it mentioned again recently by Kyron Powell, that players are not allowed to utilize the grounds to work on things. So the fact that Mikhail Louis in his off season can't properly go and get the nets at Warner Park or wherever it is to effectively address his technical deficiencies should tell Enoch Lewis and everybody else around the territories the problem is bigger. Who is running these grounds? Why our players? the players that you expect to go out there and do great things. And when you're done, you cuss them, you tell them they're dunce, they're this, they're that. But you're not affording them the resources to address the problems that they have. But you can tell them, oh, you're not technically sound, you're this, you're that. Of course, when I speak to mentality, our players are beaten down. You understand? Guess who they're beaten down by? Us. They're not beaten down by the English, the Australians, the Indians, the New Zealanders. No, they're beaten down by them, as we just say in Guyana, your Mati West Indian people. The people that look like you. It's not the white man beating them down. It's we who think we got a massa mentality. So before Andy Roberts and all of them and Brian Lara and Carl Hooper and company and everyone else, every other West Indian that seemed to think that they can bash the players and bash the current board, bash the current coach, how come you're not getting at Andre Coley, who's the A-team coach currently? How come you're not getting at Ryan Hercules, who is the current coach of the defending champion, who has been, and that team has been champion 8 times out of the last 10 seasons? Isan Crandon can take some of that credit because he was the coach for 5 of those years. How come we not getting at Ryan Hercules and Isan Crandon and whoever coaches Barbados and whoever coaches Trinidad, who I think is Riyad Emirates right now? Whoever what his predecessor was, whoever Stuart Williams and all of them who coach in the Leeward Islands, Kenroy, what's his name? Kenroy Martin, I think it is, and Carlton Bra are coaching the Windward Islands. Kenroy Martin, I think he was the left arm medium pacer for the Windward Islands. How come we're not getting at them, but we taking shots at Sammy? Who gave Sammy these players? Who prepared these players for Darren Sammy? Who prepared them for international engagement? In whose care are they for the better part of the year because they're contracted franchise players? In whose care? That is why I have an issue with Brian Lara. That is why I have an issue with what Sir Andy Roberts is saying. That is why I have an issue with what Carl Hooper is saying. That's why I have an issue with every fan who has made it their choice to go after Darren Sammy and Kishore Shallow. You get rid of Kishore Shallow, you get rid of Darren Sammy, then what? Then what? That is what I would like to do. Then what? So, I would like to ask Sam, we are where we are right now. You are, let me say they get rid of, hypothetically, they get rid of Kishore and they say, Sammy, you are now the president of the Cricket West Indies. How would you approach things?
Well, in keeping with recent actions, I would call a meeting of all the, not the legends, all the former players, all of them. And I would say, listen, what can you folks do for grassroots cricket? Right? Divide up all our different territories, you know. Here in Kingston, we have Nikita Miller, right? You go into the country area, Jerome Taylor, Chris Gale, what have you. They can all have their own little academies, whatever you want to call it. And so we can have more competitions. And you're telling me if Chris Gale's name is on a team, that you won't want to see that team do well or what have you. You see? And those very teams now we can say, okay, link up with some team in England or India or what have you. We got to think outside the box. And Chris Gale, we know how much weight Chris Gale has in India. In fact, when the Jamaican Prime Minister was down there some months ago or so, Chris Gayle was by his side because they recognized the power he has. You see, so our former players, many of them can do a lot more by building relationships with folks outside the region, but more importantly, they've got to work and see what they could do at the grassroots level, right? And you see, I'm not going to be naive and to say that, okay, we don't have issues with our territorial boards, that people don't want, some of them don't want the big names come into the space, because when the big names come in, then their star is not going to shine as bright. We understand these things, you see? But again...
So they tried after shine by Kevy. Sorry, I fed up with them. Why their star must shine bright? Yeah?
I with you, though. But you know the other thing, Walter. Here's what... No, listen to something. I with you. But here's the other thing. How many young people... And I could be wrong. How many young people interested in taking up these leadership roles too? Maybe there. Maybe. Because but here is
they
where...
Get blocked.
Here is where...
They get blocked.
Got you.
And you know what's the other thing? They get blocked and going back to what I said. Where we just live? Why did we leave?
Right. I know. The frustrations. All right. So yeah, but you see here again, our cricketers, our former international cricketers got to stop this thing about, oh, well, this is the situation. No, they got to fight. They got to fight like Frank Warren fought the establishment. Fight to change what is happening. But don't sit and, oh, the board this, the territorial board this. No. What are you doing to fight? That's it for me, guys.
I'll ask this question, Walter. Right? So this is where I think our true decline started to show its face. South Africa were readmitted into World Cricket back in I think it was 1991 or something like that, right? They played at the Cricket World Cup in 1992. I think they beat West Indies at that World Cup, if I'm not mistaken, right? They came down to the Caribbean and they played a one-off test and 3 one-dayers. West Indies handsomely won the one-dayers, but it was hell of a struggle in that test match. If you were to because hindsight is 2020, right? If you were to look back and see how West Indies batted with Brian Lara, Richie Richardson, Desmond Haynes, Jimmy Adams, Carl Hooper, I think, played that game. Courtney Ambrose and Ian, I don't know if I can't remember if Bishop was there, but Walsh played. Kenny Benjamin. If we struggled in that match against some people who'd never played Test cricket before, excepting I think for Kepler Wessels and maybe Peter Corsten, right? Who had never played Test cricket before, and we struggled against them from a batting standpoint.
And the bowling saved us.
And the bowling saved us, right? Bowling saved us. We fast forward to 1996. Kenya, who I personally would rate that defeat against Kenya as the worst in our history. Kenya is nowhere in the cricketing sphere right now.
No, Kevin. They look like us, so it was okay.
It was okay, right? It was okay. Kenya bowled us out for 96. No alarm bells went off. Nobody thought, well, hey, we got a major problem here. Let's take a holistic look at West Indies cricket. If that is not bad enough, we went to South Africa. South Africa is still relatively new to Test cricket. 6 years in, we were whitewashed. Take the fact that whatever transpired before that tour with Brian Lara and what take that away. We were whitewashed. 2000 we go to England. No, after that we come home back, we get bowled out for 51 at Queen's Park Oval. Guess who was in that lineup again? Brian Lara. He was the captain. And that's when they told him, you got 2 matches to save your captaincy career. Which was followed by that 213, which is probably why he regards the 213 as this best ever test innings. Right? We fast forward a little bit, we go to England in 2000. and we get shuttled for 61 by an unfancied English team who were soundly trashed in the first test by West Indies. West Indies looked like they were taking a walk in the park. And all of a sudden, from the second test on, we seemed like we didn't know how to play cricket. Who was in that team? Brian Lara, Carl Hooper, Shivnarayan Chandapal, Jimmy Adams. We go down the road a little bit more. A couple years later, 4-6 at Sabina Park by England. All them time they say so, nobody care about who should get rid of the whole board and all them things they say. Get rid of the whole coaching staff. But now, this is where we stand, right? It's as they say, it's couple small island man. But you know what? We'll end on this note, right? This is the final part. We'll end on this note. There's a question for Walter. Do you think this is the lowest we can go? We'll end on this.
You know, I don't think so. I don't think this is the lowest we can go. If we don't address it, the lowest we can go is that the West Indies being broken up as a team and all of us going earth. That'll be the day. And that can happen soon if we don't address it. That's the lowest we can go. The West Indies, the team being no more.
On that note, Top of Off Cricket Podcast, Top of Off fans, have your say down in the comments. This conversation is going to continue for a long time throughout the West Indies because we have a fundamental problem. We are not doing the basics right, and we are pointing the fingers at the wrong people. Fellas, it was good seeing you. Have a great Saturday evening. We will chop it up later. One love.